Hey, welcome to the study on the book of Galatians. This first video is going to give you an introduction to this study, first of all, and then also briefly an introduction to the book of Galatians. So here's how this study is designed. We're going to go through 6 chapters in 6 weeks or 6 lessons, and each lesson is going to have 3 short videos to help you get through the material. Now, what you should do is read each chapter on your own before you get there. So we'll have 1 chapter a week. So read, if you haven't read chapter 1 for today, that's okay. But be sure to read it afterward, because that's the best way to get the most out of this study is to read it before you come to the group, and then get ready to discuss it and go through these videos and discuss it. Now, these videos, 3 each week, are meant to inform and then spark discussion. So I'll bring you through the chapters, the verses in the book of Galatians, and then at the end I'm going to encourage you to talk about this within your small group. And all of these videos are at the website rednotes.org. You're welcome to go there and check it out. Maybe if you watch the video and you missed it, or if you miss a week, you can go and catch up just right there at rednotes.org. Look for the Galatians link. All right, so let's get into Galatians. Galatians was actually a letter written by the Apostle Paul a couple thousand years ago to the Christians in an area known as Galatia. Now, we're going to take a lot of this study material from the ESV Study Bible. You can pick that up at Amazon, the Kindle version for $10. It's a great little study Bible. English Standard Version is just one of the many great versions that you can study in. And the date, it was probably written around 48 AD. So, 15 years after the death of Christ. Just to give you some context, that's probably around when this letter was written. Again, Paul wrote it as a letter. It didn't have 6 chapters when he wrote it. That was added later, but this is just a letter written to a bunch of Christians that he knew. Now, here's a little chart from the study Bible. You might not be able to read this, but I'll read it for you. We see that Paul writes the letter probably around AD 48, and we see that that's sandwiched in between Paul's first missionary journey, which was around 46 or 47 AD, and his third visit to Jerusalem, which is recorded in the book of Acts in Acts chapter 15. So if you want some historical context, if you want to do some background reading for this letter to Galatians, Acts chapter 11, that's a great place to start. It's probably right at the end of Acts chapter 11 that Paul writes this letter. So historically, that's kind of where it falls, somewhere between there and Acts chapter 15. And again, Acts chapter 15 is Paul's visit to Jerusalem, when they're talking about some very, very fundamentally important things about Jews and Gentiles and the church. And that's actually what Galatians is about. So you're going to learn a lot about that as we go through this study in Galatians. But let me just give you a quick little map here. There's Galatia up there. It's a region there. You're looking at the Mediterranean Sea. So Galatia is a region. It's not a city. And just to give you more context, Jerusalem's down there, the bottom right. And so this is the area we're talking about. And the theme for this book, the theme for the whole letter in Galatians, is really freedom in Christ. We're going to be talking a lot about freedom. What does it mean to be a Christian, and is there freedom in that? And Paul's answer, we're going to see, is yes. In fact, Galatians 5, if you want a great memory verse for this whole chapter, or for this whole book, this is probably a great one. Galatians 5:1, "For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery." Now, again, that's a great one to memorize. You can memorize that now, but hopefully by the time we get through this study over these next 6 weeks, that's going to mean even more to you. You'll know exactly the context for what he writes there and why he is saying that. But for right now, why don't you sort of warm up as a group and talk about the opposite of freedom. And the opposite of freedom is bondage, or in church terms, maybe legalism. So why don't you give an example of legalism? That'll kind of get you warmed up, because that's what we're going to be talking about as we go through these next videos. So hit pause as a group, talk about that a little bit, get warmed up, and then we'll see you in the next video.